Hey chamber music fans, this is Michelle Schumann. I'm the artistic director of the Austin Chamber Music Festival, and I'm very happy to be here with you today with Reid Anderson. He's the bass player of the Bad Plus. Welcome, Reid. Thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
The Bad Plus is actually the opening group for the Austin Chamber Music Festival this year, and I kind of love starting the Chamber Music Festival with a group like the Bad Plus because I think it kind of alters people's expectations of what they can expect from a chamber music festival. And I think most people wouldn't expect necessarily the Bad Plus to be on a classical festival, but you guys don't actually fall too far from the tree, the classical tree. I know that you studied at the Curtis Institute of Music. That's correct, right?
That's correct. Yeah.
And just for fans out there, the Curtis is probably the most exclusive classical conservatory to get into. It's definitely the hardest school to get into. So I wanted to know if you could chat a little bit about kind of your classical upbringing and how you bridged the gap between classical and jazz, and how, kind of what your process was in all of that.
Well, I was kind of an anomaly in the Curtis world because I basically started playing upright bass a year before I got into Curtis. And just picked it up very quickly, and I was really determined to get in. So I went there with basically no experience of playing classical music, except for I spent a year in Eau Claire, Wisconsin, at the university there, and played in what they called an orchestra, which was certainly not
not the same standard, right?
So, any good, but
what made you want to go to Curtis in the first place?
Well, my motivation was a lot. It was kind of a mixed set of things because I really wanted to play jazz. That's why I started playing the acoustic bass. I was really interested in jazz, and I was really interested in getting out of the Midwest, getting out to the East Coast. But when I started studying with a classical teacher who thought that pretty early on, he said, I think you could get into Curtis if you wanted to. And I had never even considered something like that, but all of a sudden this thing was dangled in front of me in this sort of almost impossible goal. And I sort of saw that as like, God, I'm really interested in seeing if I can do this and what this is all about. And I don't know, I just threw myself into it. And I'm really glad I had that experience. Ultimately, it became clear to me that wasn't, my path in life to play classical music. But it certainly shaped my musical perspective in profound ways.
Right. That's really cool. And I imagine that that classical influence kind of had it kind of formed a lot of influences on how you play jazz as well, and how maybe you even write songs.
Yeah, definitely. I think that certainly, like, my harmonic language as a composer has a lot to do with classical music, and actually probably more to do with sort of classical music, almost like romantic classical music harmony, than it does to do with jazz harmony, for example. Right. But yeah, I mean, something like that, it's being so immersed in a world like that, it shapes you in ways that you can't really quantify. But I feel the presence. It made me think a lot about what am I doing, what do I want to do. Like here, I've gotten into this very exclusive institution, and I'm seeing what it's like and what's around me, and having a chance to play classical music on a really world-class level, and that it definitely it's a part of who I am, for sure.
Yeah. And the Bad Plus music, I mean, I think that it can exist in a concert hall and it can exist in a club too. I think it can. It's easily to be heard in both those places. And the last time you guys were in Austin, which was maybe 3 years ago, something like that, you guys played in a concert hall. But this year we have you playing in a club downtown. And I just wanted to talk to you a little bit about how that might change how you guys perform, or what those environments do to your music making.
Yeah, I think that you just have to take every environment on its as far as what it has to offer, and the way the environment sounds first and foremost has a lot to do with the way, you know, we respond to each other and in playing. You know, so each one has its pluses and minuses. Like concert halls can be fantastic to play in, but also a lot of times they're not suitable to having drum set and amplification. Whereas clubs tend to be, if they have a good sound system or just sound good in general, it can be easier to get sound and a little more impact. And there's something also about being, of course, closer to the band and just, you know, being physically in the space together more that can be really powerful.
Yeah, well, and also when you're in a club, usually the amplification sort of surrounds all of you, and so you kind of feel like you're in the impulse of all the music making. So I think that it makes for a really hearty feeling in the body.
Yeah, it can for sure. But we love doing both, and you know, playing in a good sounding concert hall. Also, you know, the audience is such a huge factor too. If you know, when people are there and they're engaged and they're really participating in the performance as well, it's you know, it transforms any room really.
Yeah, absolutely. And can you talk to me a little bit about the writing process for the Bad Plus? I'm not sure who does the majority of the writing or how collaborative that is. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Sure. Yeah. We're all composers in the band, and you know, one of the basic, most fundamental things about the band is that we're a cooperative group where there's no leader to the band, and we really believe in group music and the sound of, you know, a group. There's no way to substitute one of us in the band. We're not interchangeable. We play the music of the Bad Plus, and that's what we do.
Right, and you guys are like a machine together rather than three individual soloists, certainly.
Right, although, you know, we try to, one of the things about the space that we've created for ourselves is that the three of us can absolutely be ourselves. And that's really what the sound of the band is. The three of us, we sort of have this space in the center where we all meet and agree, and, you know, we're always serving. We really believe in the song, and everything that we play we think of as a song, no matter how abstracted it is or whatever the form is. We're always thinking in those terms, and you know, so there's a lot of personal responsibility, I think, between the three of us, but we're not there just operating as a. It's more complicated than just like we're one machine. You know, we're actually three pretty opinionated individuals that are kind of going at it and, you know, feeling free to kind of play against each other as much as we play with each other. I think that's part of the sound of what we do.
And so what is the process when you're learning like or when you're creating a new song?
Yeah, we all write individually away from the band. And then when we bring a piece of music in, it's more or less fully conceived and fully formed. And we all write at the piano. And basically, you know, all of the music, we could play it for you at the piano, and it would be very clear what, you know, what it is compared to the final result. You know, I think also we've been playing together for so long. We've known each other even long before the beginning of the Bad Plus. We have a long relationship with each other as friends.
And how long has the Bad Plus been together, like as a group?
Since 2001, I think, since 2001. So we're going on 11 years, 12 years now. So yeah, it's been a while. So obviously we know each other well. We know, you know, I think it's good as a composer to have who you're writing for in mind.
Right, for sure. And how do you think that you guys have changed in the last decade or so? Because you have a new album coming out, and I know that you're going to be featuring a lot of that music on this upcoming concert. So maybe you can tell me a little bit about the music that's on the new album, but also how the band has changed over the years, if you have a sort of sense of that.
Well, I think I'm supposed to say that we've changed a lot, or that there's been some profound evolution.
You don't have to say anything. There are no rules.
Well, I probably should say that. I mean, of course we've changed. Of course we've evolved. We've we've tried a lot of things, and we're still. I would say that there's definitely. I can say that there are differences between this record and the first music we made, and there's a progression over the years. But at the same time, I feel like one of the reasons that we're still together and still making music is because there was something that was really there from the beginning. I think that there's some kind of core aesthetic value, or something that unspoken agreement that we have with each other as far as music making goes, that hasn't needed to be developed. It was just kind of it's part of the genetic makeup of the three of us getting together.
Yeah, I always think about that as kind of being the voice, and I always think about that in terms of classical composers. Like even Mendelssohn, when he was 12 years old, he had this voice, and he was 12 years old, and that's the same voice when he's old. I want to say older, but he died really young. But either way, that voice is still at the core of that. And same with Brahms. I mean, Brahms lived till he was in his mid-60s, but even his Opus 1 is so, you can hear the voice of Brahms in there. And I think that that's true for the Bad Plus too, is that voice was there right from the beginning. And although I'm sure that certain development happens, the core of that voice is still there now, which I think is, to me, that's always the sign of, and I'm not trying to overly flatter you, but to me it's a sign of genius, is the idea of having a voice that is different from anything else that we've heard.
Sure, I think that's a great way to look at it in terms of, classical composers. Yeah, I mean, no matter how they change or what they do, you can still tell it's them, or any artist, really. You look at Picasso, who with such a varied output, but there's still a voice there. There's a core voice there, and I think that's true for us over these years. We've experimented with different things. We've played classical music. We even have been doing Stravinsky's Rite of Spring.
I know.
That's very cool. Or we've through our own music, or even like taking apart whatever popular music, so forth. I think there's always something there that's consistent, and that we're not, that doesn't evolve. And that's not a bad thing. It's just like it's sort of impervious to evolution in a way.
Yeah. And is there even a way to describe what that voice is? Because I know that every time in using some of these other composers, like, I can't explain what it is that makes that a particular voice, but is there anything that you could tell us that you think really draws you guys together and gives your voice? I know that's kind of a nebulous question, but I'm just wondering if you have any thoughts on that.
Well, I think there are a couple things. Like I said, there's something in the middle. We all have really different tastes and really different approaches in a way, but there's this space in the middle where we kind of agree upon these really fundamental things. I think one is a certain kind of rhythmic friction, like a, I don't know how to put this exactly, but we have a kind of like a love of rhythm that sort of that layers in not in a vertical way, so to speak. Sort of this idea of pulse and phrase that isn't exactly like countable or even writable rhythm. There's something in there that you can find it in like Paul Bley, for example, or like Ornette Coleman, or this kind of music. I think we have a love of that kind of avant-garde music, and also I think also we share a love of clarity. That like we like. I think for us there's a combination of this continual quest for clarity and continual service of the song, but going hand in hand with this kind of blurring of lines, whether it's rhythmically or harmonically, and I think those sort of opposing forces coming together have something to do with sound.
Yeah, and I think what I love about the Bad Plus is that each individual player is doing something so, oftentimes so complicated and complex. And yet there's a transparency to what you guys are doing. So it doesn't just sound like, it never sounds like a kind of a cacophony, but there is that transparency, even within that kind of layered sophistication.
Yeah, there's always a reason for it. There's always a direction that something is going in, I think.
Yeah.
Or at least we strive for that.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I'm super excited to have you guys come back. It was a blast last time, and it'll be a lot of fun this time again.
Yeah, we're really excited. It's going to be great.
Very good, and we'll open up the festival with a bang, and that'll be great. We'll knock people's socks off, and then we'll move on into the rest of the festival. It'll be great. Well, thanks a lot, Reid. I really appreciate you taking the time to chat with us and get to know our audiences a little bit more, and they can get to know you, and then they'll all show up and cheer you on.
Great. Well, thank you so much. We're looking forward to it.
Thanks, and take care. We'll talk to you later.
Okay.
Bye.